The small town of Pinecrest, nestled in the shadow of the Appalachian Mountains, was the kind of place where everyone knew each other. Main Street consisted of just a handful of family-owned businesses, and the local diner served as the unofficial town hall. It was here that 12-year-old Ethan Miller had lived his entire life. With his mop of unruly brown hair and a perpetual smirk, he was known throughout town as a spirited kid with an adventurous streak. October 15th, 2017 started like any other Sunday. The autumn air was crisp, and the forest surrounding Pinecrest had transformed into a magnificent tapestry of red, orange, and gold. Ethan's mother, Sarah, was preparing breakfast when she heard her son's excited voice from the backyard. "Mom, I'm taking Scout for a quick walk before breakfast," Ethan called out, referring to the family's energetic golden retriever. Sarah glanced at the kitchen clock, 7:30 a.m. "Don't go far, Ethan. Breakfast will be ready in 20 minutes, she replied, flipping pancakes on the griddle. Their house bordered Pinecrest National Forest, a vast wilderness that stretched for miles. Like most local kids, Ethan knew the trails near their home like the back of his hand. He had strict instructions: never venture beyond the old oak with the distinctive split trunk about half a mile into the forest. When 40 minutes passed with no sign of Ethan, Sarah felt the first whispers of concern. She stepped onto the back porch, cupping her hands around her mouth. "Ethan, breakfast is getting cold." Only the rustling of leaves answered her call. By 9 a.m., Sarah's husband James had joined the search, calling neighbors and friends. By noon, the entire town of Pinecrest was combing the forest, calling Ethan's name. Park rangers and local police organized a systematic search operation. 3 days later, Scout returned home. The golden retriever appeared on the miller's porch, exhausted and dehydrated, but otherwise unharmed. His leash was still attached, the end frayed as if it had been caught on something and broken free. But of Ethan, there was no sign. The search expanded to include state police, FBI agents specializing in missing children cases, and hundreds of volunteers. They scoured every inch of the forest within a 10-mile radius. Helicopters with thermal imaging flew overhead. Search dogs followed Scout's trail into the woods, only to lose it near a rocky creek about 2 miles in. As weeks turned into months, the search efforts gradually dwindled. Posters with Ethan's smiling face hung in every shop window in Pinecrest and neighboring towns. The Millers appeared on national news programs, pleading for information. A reward fund grew to over $100,000. But as the first anniversary of Ethan's disappearance approached, the painful reality settled in. The forest had claimed their son, and they might never know what happened that autumn morning when he chased after his dog into the endless trees. Sarah and James Miller refused to move away from Pinecrest. "This is where Ethan would come home to," Sarah would say, when well-meaning friends suggested a fresh start elsewhere. They kept his room exactly as he had left it. Soccer trophies on the shelf, science fair medals hanging from the bedpost, and his collection of comic books neatly arranged on the bookcase. Every year on October 15th, the town of Pinecrest held a candlelight vigil for Ethan, and every year Scout would sit attentively beside Sarah and James, as if waiting for his boy to return from the trees. 6 years passed. The search for Ethan Miller had long since been classified as a cold case. The town of Pinecrest had never fully recovered from the tragedy, but life had continued. The wound had scarred over, though it would never truly heal. On May 28, 2023, Jason Tucker, a 35-year-old environmental scientist from Boston, was conducting research in Pinecrest National Forest. His work involved studying the effects of climate change on the forest ecosystem, requiring him to venture into remote areas rarely visited by hikers or tourists. The late spring weather was pleasant, with dappled sunlight filtering through the canopy of leaves overhead. Jason had been camping in the forest for 3 days, collecting soil samples and documenting plant species. His research had taken him nearly 15 miles from the nearest marked trail, much farther than most people would ever venture. As the afternoon sun began its descent, Jason decided to make camp near a small, crystal-clear stream. While gathering firewood, he noticed something unusual partially buried under years of fallen leaves and forest debris, a faded blue fabric peeking out from beneath the undergrowth. Curious, Jason carefully brushed away the layers of decomposing leaves. His breath caught in his throat when he realized he was looking at a weathered backpack. The once bright blue color had faded to a pale ghost of itself after years of exposure to the elements. With gloved hands, Jason gently extracted the backpack from its earthy grave. The name Ethan M. was still visible, written in black marker on the inside flap. "My God," Jason whispered to himself, the significance of his discovery immediately apparent. Even as an outsider, he had heard about the local boy who had vanished in these woods years ago. Inside the backpack, protected from the worst of the elements, Jason found a plastic water bottle, a compass with a cracked face, a small flashlight with corroded batteries, and a Ziploc bag containing a child's journal. The pages were stained, but largely intact. With trembling hands, Jason opened the journal to the first entry. Day 1. Got lost chasing Scout. He ran after a deer. His leash broke when I tried to hold him back. I've been trying to find my way home, but got turned around. It's getting dark. I'm going to stay by this big rock tonight and try again tomorrow. My flashlight works at least. I'm scared, but Dad taught me what to do if I get lost. Stay put. Someone will find me. Jason checked his GPS coordinates and carefully packed everything back into the backpack. This was evidence in a missing persons case. He needed to get it to the authorities immediately. As darkness fell, Jason abandoned his research plans and began the long trek back to civilization, the weathered backpack secure in his own gear. The next morning, Jason walked into the Pinecrest Sheriff's office and placed the backpack on the counter. "I think I found something that belongs to Ethan Miller," he said quietly. Sheriff Dan Wilson, who had been a deputy during the original search, stared at the backpack in disbelief. Within an hour, the Millers were notified, and the search for Ethan was suddenly, unexpectedly active once more. The Miller family gathered in Sheriff Wilson's office, their faces a mixture of hope and dread as they stared at the weathered backpack on the table. Sarah's hands trembled as she reached for her son's journal, preserved inside its plastic bag. "We've contacted the state police and FBI," Sheriff Wilson explained gently. "They're sending teams to the location where Mr. Tucker found the backpack, but I thought you should see this first." James wrapped an arm around his wife's shoulders as she carefully opened the journal. Scout, now an elderly dog with a graying muzzle, lay at their feet, as if he understood the significance of the moment. Sarah began to read aloud, her voice breaking. Day 2. It rained all night. I'm cold and wet. Tried following the creek downhill like Dad taught me, but the rocks are slippery. I fell and hurt my ankle. It's not broken, but hurts to walk. I've been using my compass, but I don't know which way home is from here. I ate the granola bar from my backpack. Only have one water bottle left. Scout ran off again this morning. I hope he finds his way home, so Mum and Dad know to look for me. James wiped tears from his eyes as Sarah continued through several more entries. The journal chronicled 5 days of Ethan's struggle to survive, his increasing hunger and thirst, and his unwavering belief that his parents would find him. Day 5. So hungry. Found some berries but remembered Dad's rule about not eating anything. I'm not sure about. My ankle is better, but I'm really tired all the time now. It's getting colder at night. I made a shelter with branches like we did on our camping trip last summer. I think I'm going uphill now. There's a really tall cliff nearby. Maybe if I climb up tomorrow, I can see which way town is. I miss Mom and Dad and Scout. Please find me soon. That was the final entry. The area where the backpack was found is Extremely remote, Jason Tucker, who had remained to help with the investigation, explained. It's nearly 15 miles from where Ethan was last seen, in rugged terrain that wasn't covered in the original search. How could he have gotten so far? James asked, his voice hollow. The forest can be disorienting, Sheriff Wilson said. And if he was following that creek, it winds through the mountains for miles, with an injured ankle and bad weather. He left the sentence unfinished. Everyone in the room understood the implications. Within hours, the news of the discovery spread through Pinecrest. Volunteers once again poured in, ready to search the area where the backpack was found. This time, they weren't looking for a lost boy, but for answers, closure for a wound that had never fully healed. The search area centered around a steep cliff face that matched the description in Ethan's final journal entry. Teams of professional search and rescue personnel, equipped with drones and specialized equipment, methodically examined every inch of the rugged terrain. On the third day of the renewed search, a drone camera spotted something nestled at the base of the cliff, a small cave, partially hidden by fallen rocks and years of accumulated forest debris. The search team approached the cave with a mixture of determination and dread. The entrance was narrow, just wide enough for a small child to squeeze through, but requiring adults to remove their gear and proceed on hands and knees. Inside, the cave opened up slightly, providing enough space for a person to sit upright. Flashlight beams cut through the darkness, revealing a scene that brought tears to even the most seasoned search and rescue veterans. Against the far wall of the cave was a small shelter constructed of branches and leaves, a child's attempt at wilderness survival. Beside it lay a small pile of objects, a Swiss Army knife with the Miller family name engraved on it, a handful of smooth creek stones arranged in an arrow pointing toward the cave entrance, and a carefully folded piece of paper protected inside a plastic sandwich bag. With gloved hands, the team leader gently unfolded the paper. It was a hand-drawn map, clearly made by a child, showing a creek, a cliff with a cave, and an arrow pointing in what appeared to be the direction of home. Beside the map was a message. Mom and Dad, I tried to find my way home, but my ankle hurts. Too much to walk far. I'm going to stay in this cave where it's dry. I left markers on trees pointing here. Please find me. I love you, Ethan. There were no human remains in the cave or the surrounding area. Whatever had happened to Ethan Miller after he wrote that note, it hadn't ended there. When the contents of the cave were brought down the mountain, Sarah clutched the note to her chest, sobbing. He was trying so hard to do everything right, she whispered. He was such a smart boy. The discovery prompted the most thorough forensic investigation the area had ever seen. Every inch of the cave and surrounding forest was analyzed for DNA, evidence, trace fibers, anything that might explain what had happened to Ethan after he took shelter in that cave. 2 weeks into the investigation, the breakthrough came from an unexpected source. A retired forest ranger named Thomas Blackwood, who had been following the news of the discovery, came forward with information that changed everything. Back in 2017, about a week after the boy went missing, I was working up near Blackwater Ridge, about 20 miles from where they're searching now, Blackwood explained to Sheriff Wilson. I found a child's sneaker near the road, reported it, too. But with hundreds of searchers in the woods that week, things got overlooked. I always wondered. The location Blackwood identified was near an infrequently used Forest Service road that eventually connected to the interstate. Records showed that during the week of Ethan's disappearance, several logging trucks had used that road to transport timber. Further investigation revealed that Curtis Harmon, a long-haul trucker who occasionally transported timber from the Pinecrest forest, had made a run that very week. Harmon had died 3 years ago in a highway accident, taking whatever knowledge he might have had to his grave, but his logs showed an unexplained 2-hour delay on that particular journey and a fuel stop 50 miles from his usual route. A stop near a small urgent care clinic. The clinic's records from 2017 were subpoenaed, and there it was, a nameless child, approximately 12 years old, treated for dehydration, exposure, and a sprained ankle. The child had reportedly been found along the roadside by a trucker who dropped him off but didn't stay. The boy, confused and feverish, had been unable or unwilling to give his name or contact information. Hospital records showed the child had been transferred to a larger facility in another state, and from there entered the foster care system under the name John Doe 27. The search for Ethan Miller suddenly transformed from a cold case into an active missing persons investigation. A nationwide alert went out with Ethan's information and age-progressed photos showing what he might look like at 18. 3 months later, a social worker in Seattle, Washington, responded to the alert. One of her former cases, a boy, placed with a foster family after being found with no identification or memory of his home, bore a striking resemblance to the age-progressed photos of Ethan Miller. DNA testing confirmed what Sarah and James Miller had never stopped hoping for. Their son was alive. The reunion at the Seattle airport was broadcast on national news. Ethan, now 18, tall and lean with the same unruly brown hair, stepped off the plane uncertain and nervous. Years of therapy had helped him piece together fragments of his early childhood, but much remained blank in his memory. A protective mechanism his mind had employed to cope with the trauma of being lost and alone in the wilderness. When Scout, old and grey but still recognizable, limped forward from beside Sarah and James, something sparked in Ethan's eyes. He knelt down, allowing the elderly dog to sniff his hand. "Scout," he whispered, the name emerging from some deep, preserved corner of his memory. The dog's tail began to wag, slowly at first, then with increasing enthusiasm. Scout pressed his graying muzzle against Ethan's chest, and the young man wrapped his arms around the dog's neck. Sarah and James approached cautiously, giving their son the space he needed. 6 years had passed. The 12-year-old boy was gone, replaced by a young man who had grown up with another name, another life. "We never stopped looking for you," Sarah said softly, tears streaming down her face. "Never." Ethan stood, one hand still resting on Scout's head. "I remember the cave," he said quietly, and following the road, a truck stopped. He shook his head. "It gets blurry after that." "You have all the time in the world to remember," James told him, his voice thick with emotion. "Or not. Whatever happens next, we'll face it together." In the months that followed, Ethan Miller slowly reintegrated with his birth family while maintaining connections with the foster family who had raised him for 6 years. His memory returned in fragments. Fishing trips with his father, his mother's chocolate chip pancakes, the day Scout came home as a puppy. The journal and map he had created in those desperate days in the forest became part of a traveling exhibit about wilderness safety for children. Pinecrest established an annual safety program in local schools, teaching children what to do if they became lost. And every year on May 28th, the anniversary of Jason Tucker's discovery of the backpack, the Miller family sent him a photo of their reunited family, along with a simple message: "Thank you for not giving up on finding what was lost."